She was 8 months pregnant when her billionaire husband stood up at her own baby shower in front of 200 guests and announced he was leaving her for her own half-sister. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she found when she checked the bank accounts. $300,000. Gone. The house she painted the nursery in with her own hands, transferred to a trust she wasn't part of, her signature on documents she never signed. He wasn't just leaving her, he was erasing her, and the custody papers his private investigator had already drawn up, those weren't about love, those weren't about Jocelyn. Those were about hiding hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud before the federal government came knocking. He thought she would break. He thought she would sign whatever he put in front of her and disappear quietly. He was wrong. Because the woman he called fat, the woman he humiliated in front of everyone she knew, the woman he tried to take everything from, including her unborn daughter, that woman stood up. And what happened next made him regret every single choice he ever made. This is her story. And if you have ever been underestimated, overlooked, or made to feel small by someone who was supposed to love you, this story is for you. Stay until the end. You will not regret it. Message and lesson. This story carries a truth that every woman deserves to hear. Your worth is not measured by someone else's ability to see it. Not by a husband, not by a sister, not by a number on a scale, not by strangers in a comment section. You are the whole story, never just a chapter in someone else's book. When the world tries to make you small, stand tall. When they expect you to break, rebuild. When they take everything, discover that the most powerful thing you own is something no one can steal. Your strength. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, share it with a woman who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment and tell me, what moment hit you the hardest? Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read tonight. Hit that like button so this story can reach more women who deserve to know they are not alone. And if you are new here, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Because every week, we bring you stories about women who refuse to be broken. And the next one might be the one that changes everything for you. You look absolutely huge. Jocelyn's laugh cut through the baby shower like a shard of glass. She pressed her hand to her chest and tilted her head. I mean, glowing. I meant glowing. Colette Ashford stood in the center of her own living room and smiled. She had been smiling for 2 hours straight. Her cheeks ached. Her lower back screamed. 8 months pregnant, and every bone in her body felt like it belonged to someone else. The Beacon Hill mansion sparkled. 200 guests filled the rooms with laughter and champagne glasses, and the kind of effortless elegance that took 6 weeks to plan. Imported peonies from Holland, a 5-tier cake shaped like a carousel, miniature bottles of French lavender oil as party favors. Colette had planned events like this for years. She knew what perfection looked like. Today was supposed to be hers. Her mother Dot stood near the gift table, rearranging silver boxes for the 3rd time. Dorothea Calloway was 58 years old, 5 feet 2 inches tall, and absolutely incapable of leaving a table alone. She shifted a box 2 inches to the left, then back to the right, then back to the left. "Mom," Colette called softly. "It's fine." "The bow is crooked," Dot said. "It's handmade. Handmade can still be straight." Maggie Sloane appeared at Colette's elbow with a glass of sparkling water. "Drink," she said. "You've been standing for 40 minutes. I'm fine." "You're swollen. Drink." Colette took the water. Maggie was 34, a labor and delivery nurse, and the kind of best friend who confused orders with affection. She had earned the right. They had been friends since freshman year at Boston University. 16 years of Maggie saying, "Drink, sit, eat, leave him," and Colette listening to approximately half of it. Jocelyn moved through the room like light through crystal. She wore a white dress, not quite bridal, not quite innocent, something in between that made people look twice. At 27, Jocelyn Mercer had the kind of beauty that entered a room before she did. Long legs, sharp collarbones, a smile that promised something it never delivered. She was Colette's half-sister, same father, different mothers, different everything. Colette watched Jocelyn pause at Grant's empty chair. She straightened his place card. She touched the back of the chair, just briefly, the way someone touches something that belongs to them. Grant was late. He was always late now. Colette smoothed her dress over her belly. She had been doing this all evening. Every few minutes, her hands moved without permission, pressing the fabric flat against the curve, trying to make herself smaller, trying to contain something that refused to be contained. She had gained 42 pounds during this pregnancy. The doctor said it was normal for her frame. Grant said nothing about it, which was worse. She caught her reflection in the window. Round, soft, enormous. The woman looking back at her was someone she was still learning to recognize. The front door opened at 7:22. Grant Ashford walked in wearing a charcoal suit and no tie. He was 38, tall, dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. The kind of handsome that made people forgive him for things they shouldn't. He crossed the room. He kissed Colette on the cheek. His lips were dry. He smelled like cologne and something else, something floral that wasn't hers. He didn't touch her belly. He hadn't touched her belly in weeks. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Meeting ran over." "On a Saturday," Colette said. "Real estate doesn't take weekends off." She nodded. She had been nodding at this answer for months. 20 minutes later, Grant asked for everyone's attention. He stood near the fireplace. He tapped his champagne glass with a dessert fork. The room quieted the way rooms do for men with money. Colette's heart lifted. She thought he was going to make a speech about the baby. She thought he was going to say something about becoming a father, about the nursery they had painted together, about the name they hadn't chosen yet. She was wrong. "I appreciate everyone being here tonight," Grant said. His voice was even, measured. The voice he used in boardrooms when the numbers were bad. "This isn't easy to say, and I apologize for the timing." Colette felt it before he said it. The way the air changed. The way Maggie's hand found her arm. "Colette and I have decided to go separate ways," Grant said. "I've recently reconnected with someone, and I believe in being honest rather than prolonging something that isn't working." He paused. He looked at Jocelyn. Jocelyn looked at the floor, the performance of shame from someone who had none. "Jocelyn and I are together," Grant said. "I've already spoken with my attorneys. I want this to be as smooth as possible for everyone." The room went silent. 200 people stopped breathing at the same time. Someone near the bar dropped a champagne glass. It shattered against the marble floor. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. The clock on the mantel ticked. Ticked, ticked. Colette stood very still. 8 months pregnant, in a room full of people who suddenly could not meet her eyes. Her hands were on her belly. The baby kicked, hard, like a tiny fist against a locked door. Dot surged forward. Maggie caught her by the arm. "Don't," Maggie whispered. "Not here." Jocelyn took a step toward Colette, her hand extended, her face arranged into an expression of sympathy so practiced it was almost convincing. "Letty, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way." Colette pulled back. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She walked. Past 200 people. Past the 5-tier cake. Past the imported peonies. Past her mother's perfectly arranged gift table with its crooked, handmade bows. No one stopped her. She got in her car, sat in the driveway, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The leather seats smelled like Grant's cologne. She noticed a small receipt tucked into the console. A jeweler on Newberry Street, dated 3 weeks ago. An emerald-cut diamond. Not for her. Her ring was round. She had always known her ring was round. She sat there for a long time. The house glowed behind her. She could see shadows moving in the windows. People leaving. People whispering. People grateful it wasn't them. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize, a voicemail notification. She pressed play, a woman's voice, low and steady. "Mrs. Ashford, you don't know me. My name is Petra. I was your husband's executive assistant until 6 months ago, when he fired me for finding things he didn't want found. There are things about your husband and your sister that you need to hear. Things much worse than what happened tonight. Call me back, please." Colette stared at the phone. The screen glowed in the dark car. The baby kicked again. She started the engine. The drive to Maggie's apartment took 14 minutes. Colette didn't remember any of it. She parked crooked. She took the stairs because the elevator in Maggie's building smelled like bleach, and she couldn't stomach bleach anymore. 3 flights, 8 months pregnant. She stopped twice to breathe. Maggie was already there. She had left the shower minutes after Colette. The door was unlocked. A glass of water sat on the counter. A blanket was folded on the couch. This was what Maggie did. She prepared, she anticipated, she laid out water and blankets the way emergency rooms lay out gurneys. Ready before the patient arrived. "Sit," Maggie said. Colette sat. "Drink." Colette drank. "Now play that voicemail on speaker." Petra's voice filled the small apartment. She spoke for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. She was precise, organized. She sounded like a woman who had rehearsed this call many times. The affair had not started recently. It began 2 years ago, before Colette's pregnancy, before the anniversary trip to Portofino. Petra had discovered it by accident. Hotel receipts, a second phone, credit card charges at restaurants Grant never mentioned. She confronted him privately, professionally, the way an assistant handles a problem. He fired her the next day, offered her 3-month severance and a non-disclosure agreement. She signed both. "I regretted it every day since," Petra's voice said. "When I saw the news about the baby shower, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." One detail hit Colette like a fist. The anniversary trip to Portofino. Last September, Grant had surprised her with first-class tickets, a villa overlooking the sea, 3 perfect days. Jocelyn had been there, in Portofino, at the same time, staying at a hotel 11 minutes from their villa. "What a coincidence," everyone said. "How fun," everyone said. It wasn't a coincidence. Grant had suggested they invite Jocelyn to dinner one evening. Colette thought it was generous. She thought it was kind. She thanked her husband for including her lonely half-sister in their romantic trip. She remembered the dinner now, the restaurant overlooking the harbor, candles on the table. Jocelyn wore blue. Grant ordered for everyone. When the check came, Grant's hand brushed Jocelyn's, reaching for the bread basket. Colette noticed. She told herself it was nothing. It was everything. Maggie turned off the voicemail. The apartment went quiet. 2 years, Colette said. The words felt strange in her mouth, like chewing glass. 2 years, Maggie repeated. Before the baby. Yes. Before Portofino. Yes. Colette's mind started doing the thing it did when it couldn't process forward, so it processed backward, rewinding, replaying every late night, every canceled dinner, every business trip that ran long. Every time Grant said he was tired, distracted, stressed, busy. Every time she believed him. She thought about the pregnancy. She had told Grant in their kitchen on a Tuesday morning. He was eating toast. She slid the test across the counter. He looked at it. He looked at her. He smiled. He said all the right words. But his eyes went somewhere else for just a moment. A flicker. She dismissed it as shock. It wasn't shock. It was calculation. Maggie, Colette said slowly, if the affair started 2 years ago, he was already with Jocelyn when I got pregnant. Maggie nodded. I got pregnant because things felt distant between us. I thought a baby would bring us closer. I know. He let me believe that. I know, honey. Colette pressed her palms against her eyes, hard, until she saw sparks. She thought about her half-sister. The gap between them had always been wide, 11 years of age difference. Different mothers, different childhoods. But Colette had tried. She braided Jocelyn's hair when Jocelyn was 6. Taught her to ride a bike when she was 8. Drove her to prom when she was 17, the prom. Colette remembered it now with new clarity. Jocelyn's date had suddenly asked Colette's boyfriend to switch partners for a dance. It seemed innocent at the time, playful. But Jocelyn's eyes when she danced with him. That look. The look of someone collecting what she believed she deserved. In college, Colette's roommate became Jocelyn's best friend within 1 semester. Her first serious boyfriend left her junior year, started dating Jocelyn 3 months later. I never wanted to see the pattern, Colette said. She didn't want a sister. She wanted my life. Maggie sat beside her, cloak, shoulder to shoulder. I need you to stop rewinding and start thinking forward. Can you do that? Not yet. Try. Give me a minute. Maggie gave her the minute, then she said, check the bank accounts. Colette opened her phone. Her fingers were clumsy. She typed the wrong password twice. She scrolled through bank statements the way women scroll through text messages when they're looking for proof. Fast at first, then slow, then back up, then screenshot, then scroll again. The joint checking account had been drained. $312,000. Transferred to an account she didn't recognize. The routing number led to a trust she wasn't part of. The savings account was empty. The investment portfolio had been liquidated 2 months ago. And the house, their house, the Beacon Hill mansion she had decorated room by room, painting the nursery sage green with her own hands. It had been transferred to something called the Ashford Legacy Trust 6 weeks ago. Her name was nowhere on the documents. He planned this, Colette whispered. He didn't just fall in love with someone else. He built an exit strategy. Like a hostile takeover, Maggie said. Exactly like that. Colette kept scrolling. Her thumb moved mechanically, past utility bills and grocery charges, and the $87 she spent at the maternity store last week on a dress she thought would make her feel beautiful at her own baby shower. Then she found it. A payment dated 5 weeks ago, $14,000, to a private investigation firm called Sterling and Associates. The memo line read, Ashford Domestic Matter, Priority. She clicked through to the attached correspondence. 1 email. From Sterling to Grant. Subject line, Ashford. Grounds for full custody. Priority. The room tilted. He didn't just want to leave her. He didn't just want Jocelyn, or the money, or the freedom. He wanted the baby. Colette set the phone down very carefully. The way you set down something fragile. The way you set down something that has already broken. Maggie, she said. Her voice was very quiet, very steady. The steadiness of someone standing at the edge. He's trying to take my baby. Maggie picked up the phone. She read the email. Her face went white, then red. No, Maggie said. Not gently, not softly. With the certainty of a woman who had spent 12 years helping mothers bring children into the world. No, he is not. Morning light came through Maggie's guest room curtains like an accusation. Too bright, too normal. The world had no right to look this ordinary. Colette had not slept. She had lain on her left side, the way Dr. Cross recommended for the baby's circulation, and stared at the wall until the wall stared back. Her mind would not stop replaying. The custody revelation changed everything. She understood now. Grant did not choose the baby shower by accident. He chose it because 200 witnesses would see her reaction. If she screamed, she was unstable. If she cried, she was weak. If she stayed calm, she didn't care enough about the marriage. Every response was a trap, and she had walked into that room thinking he was going to talk about the baby. She sat up slowly. Her body protested. Her back, her hips, her swollen ankles. She put her feet on the cold floor and let the shock of it wake her up. She thought about the beginning, the real beginning, not the baby shower, not Portofino, the very first time she saw Grant Ashford, a charity gala, the Boston Children's Hospital annual fundraiser. Colette was working it. She ran a small event planning business at the time, 20 employees, modest but growing. She was good at making other people's celebrations beautiful. Grant was the keynote donor. He stood at the podium in a navy suit and spoke about giving back. His voice was warm. His smile was easy. He wrote a check for $250,000 like it was nothing. After the event, he found her near the coat check. "You planned this," he said. Not a question. "My team did," Colette replied. "Your team is excellent, but the details are yours. The jazz trio instead of a DJ, the handwritten place cards, the way the centerpieces are just low enough that people can see each other across the table." He paused. "That's someone who understands that connection matters more than spectacle." She was flattered. Of course she was. He asked her to dinner the next evening. She said no. He asked again the following week. She said she would think about it. He sent flowers, not roses, ranunculus, her favorite. She had mentioned it once in passing, to a mutual acquaintance. He had listened, or he had investigated. At the time, she couldn't tell the difference. Now she knew. On their second date, he asked about her family, specifically about siblings. "I have a half-sister," Colette told him. "Jocelyn. She's 11 years younger. We're not close, but I try." "Tell me about her," Grant said. Colette showed him photos on her phone. Jocelyn at Christmas, Jocelyn at the beach, Jocelyn in a sundress that made her look like a magazine cover. Grant's thumb paused on one photo. Jocelyn laughing, head thrown back, throat exposed. He looked at it for 1 second too long. Then he scrolled past it and said, "She's lucky to have you as a sister." Colette remembered what happened next. She showed Jocelyn a photo of Grant the following week. Jocelyn's eyes went wide. Something quick and hungry moved across her face. "He's gorgeous," Jocelyn said. A pause. "You're so lucky, Letty." The nickname. Only Jocelyn used it. Short for Colette, but somehow smaller. The nickname that always made her feel like the lesser version of herself. Colette closed her eyes in Maggie's guest room and let the memories come. They came like waves now, each one crashing harder than the last. The wedding. October. 3 years ago. Jocelyn was maid of honor. She wore a pale gold dress that caught the light every time she moved. During the ceremony, she cried. Beautiful, photogenic tears. Everyone said how sweet it was. During the reception, Jocelyn gave a toast. She held her champagne glass and looked out at the 200 guests and said, "My sister found the perfect man, someone who sees her, someone who chooses her. I just hope that someday I find someone half as wonderful." She looked at Grant when she said it, not at Colette, at Grant. And Grant smiled, a small, private smile. The kind of smile that lives between two people who share a secret. Colette had the photo, page 14 of the wedding album. She had looked at it 100 times. Jocelyn's eyes locked on Grant. Grant's mouth curved upward. Colette beside them, blurred slightly, looking the other direction. She had never seen it before. She saw it now. It was always there, she said to the empty room. I just didn't want to look. She got up, she walked to Maggie's kitchen. She opened every cabinet until she found flour, sugar, butter, eggs, vanilla extract, chocolate chips. She baked chocolate chip cookies, her mother's recipe, the one Dot taught her when she was 9 years old. Cream the butter and sugar until fluffy. Add the eggs one at a time. Sift the dry ingredients. Fold in the chips. 375 degrees. 11 minutes. She didn't eat them. She just needed her hands to do something that made sense. The butter melted in the bowl, golden and soft. The smell filled the apartment, sweet and warm and ordinary. The oven timer beeped after 11 minutes, and for 1 second, standing in someone else's kitchen covered in flour, everything was fine. Then her phone rang. Dot's voice was tight, the kind of tight that means someone is holding something back with both hands. Letty, your father is here. Colette's stomach dropped. She had not spoken to Warren Mercer in 4 months. Not since he forgot her birthday for the 2nd year in a row. He says he knew, Dot continued, about Grant and Jocelyn. He's known for months. Silence. And he says he has something to tell you about why Jocelyn is really doing this. Colette looked at the cookies cooling on the rack. Perfect rose, golden brown, the one thing she could control. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said. Warren Mercer stood in Dot's kitchen like a man awaiting sentencing. He was 63 years old, thin, stooped. His hair had gone completely white since Colette last saw him. His hand shook. When he reached for the coffee cup Dot set before him with more force than necessary. Sit down, Warren, Dot said. Her voice was flat. She had been divorced from this man for 24 years, and the sight of him in her kitchen still made her jaw tight. Colette stood in the doorway. She did not sit. She wanted the advantage of height, such as it was. She wanted to look down at the man who had failed her since she was 7 years old. Start talking, she said. Warren stared at his coffee. Jocelyn's mother died 3 years ago. You knew that. I sent flowers. What you didn't know is that Linda left debts, significant debts, gambling, shopping, medical bills she hid, nearly $400,000. Colette said nothing. Jocelyn's trust fund, the one my parents set up, she burned through it in 18 months. Rent on that apartment in Back Bay, designer clothes, trips she posted all over Instagram. She was spending like the money would never end, and then it ended. Warren's hands tightened around the mug. She came to me, asked for help. I had nothing to give. My second marriage wiped me out. You know that. I know that, Colette said. So Jocelyn was desperate, really desperate, and then she met Grant. At my engagement party, Colette said, I introduced them. Warren flinched. Yes. And she saw a solution. He looked up. His eyes were watery and red. She saw a way out. Grant had everything: money, status, power. She set her sights on him, and she is very good at getting what she wants. How long have you known? The question landed like a slap. Warren looked at the table. 8 months, he whispered. 8 months, her entire pregnancy, every phone call, every Sunday dinner, every time Warren looked at her growing belly and said nothing. You knew my husband was sleeping with my sister for 8 months, Colette said, and you said nothing. Jocelyn threatened me. If I told you, she would cut me off completely. I would lose both of you. I couldn't. You chose her oaths over me. Colette's voice was very quiet. Again, it wasn't like that. I was trying to protect everyone. You don't understand the position. You're right. I don't understand choosing silence over your pregnant daughter's safety. Warren's face crumpled. The old man looked broken, but Colette could not afford to feel sorry for him. She was 8 months pregnant and running out of room for other people's guilt. Dot stood at the counter with her arms crossed. She had not spoken. She didn't need to. 24 years of divorce had said everything. The doorbell rang. Maggie had called ahead. Theodore Winslow arrived at 11:15. He was 45, tall, clean-shaven, gray at the temples. He carried a leather briefcase and an expression that said he had seen worse than this, but not by much. "Mrs. Ashford," he said, "I'm Teddy Winslow. Maggie tells me you need a divorce attorney who doesn't scare easily." "Do you scare easily?" "I've represented 3 governors' wives and a Supreme Court clerk. I don't scare at all." Colette led him to the dining table. She showed him the bank records, the drained accounts, the liquidated portfolio, the house transfer to the Ashford Legacy Trust. Teddy reviewed everything in silence. He made small notes in the margin of a yellow legal pad. His handwriting was precise. His pen moved like a scalpel. Then he looked up and smiled. A cold, professional smile. "Your husband made a mistake," Teddy said. "Several, actually. These asset transfers occurred during the marriage in a state with equitable distribution laws. Moving $300,000 from joint accounts while your wife is 8 months pregnant is what we call judicial suicide." "There's more?" Colette said. She showed him the house transfer documents. "My signature is on these papers, but I never signed them." Teddy examined the documents. He held them at arm's length. He tilted them toward the light. "This isn't your signature," he said. "No." "You're certain?" "I'm left-handed. This signature slants to the right." Teddy set the papers down very carefully. "Mrs. Ashford, forging a spouse's signature on a property transfer isn't a civil matter. It's a criminal one. Your husband didn't just make a mistake. He committed a crime." At 3:45 that afternoon, Jocelyn arrived at Maggie's apartment. Uninvited. She carried a bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers. Colette noticed. Of course she noticed. Jocelyn stood in the doorway, looking beautiful and contrite. She wore her sympathy face, the one she had been practicing since childhood. "I brought these for you," she said, extending the flowers. "I know this is hard, Letty. I never wanted to hurt you." Maggie took one step forward. Colette stopped her with a hand. Jocelyn continued. Her voice was soft, rehearsed. "Grant and I, we have something real. It wasn't planned. Love isn't something you can control. I hope someday you'll understand that." She tilted her head. "I think deep down, you know that the marriage was already over. I actually did you a favor. He was never fully yours." The apartment went quiet. Maggie's hands were fists at her sides. Dot, who had followed Colette, gripped the kitchen counter until her knuckles went white. Colette looked at her half-sister. She said nothing for 30 full seconds. She let the silence stretch. She let Jocelyn stand there with her funeral flowers and her manufactured compassion and her white dress confidence. Then Colette spoke. "The lilies are beautiful, white, like the dress you wore to my baby shower." Jocelyn's composure cracked, just a flicker, a twitch at the corner of her mouth. She turned and left without another word. After the door closed, Colette locked herself in Maggie's bathroom. She sat on the tile floor. She pulled her knees up as far as her belly would allow, her back against the wall, the cold tile beneath her, the bathroom fan humming overhead. This position, knees up, back against the wall, bathroom floor. Every woman who has ever been blindsided knows this position. It is the posture of someone trying to hold themselves together by making themselves as small as possible. She stayed there for 10 minutes. Then she washed her face and went back out. At 6:15, Teddy called. Colette, I had my investigator run a preliminary check on your husband's corporate filings. You need to sit down. She was already sitting. Tell me. The reason Grant is trying to push through a fast divorce with full custody and maximum asset separation. It's not about Jocelyn. His company is about to be investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Fraudulent property valuations, inflated appraisals to secure loans. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Colette's hand moved to her belly. The baby shifted. He's not just leaving you, Teddy said. He's using the divorce to protect his assets from federal seizure. He's moving everything into Jocelyn's name before the investigation goes public. Jocelyn isn't just the other woman. She's the getaway car. And the custody claim? A mother fighting for her child looks unstable, emotional, unreliable. The more chaos he creates in your personal life, the weaker your position when the feds come knocking. He needs you distracted. He needs you broken. Colette looked out the window. The city was going dark. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Somewhere below, a car honked. A dog barked. Normal sounds for a normal evening in a world that no longer made sense. I'm not broken, she said. No, Teddy replied. You're not. The days that followed moved like weather. Some hours were still, some hours were storms. Teddy's team worked through Thanksgiving weekend. 3 paralegals, a forensic accountant, and Teddy himself reviewing every financial document they could access. The picture that emerged was vast and ugly. Grant Ashford's real estate empire was built on inflated numbers. Properties valued at $50 million were worth $30. Developments promoted as luxury were constructed with substandard materials and marked up beyond reason. He had secured hundreds of millions in bank loans based on appraisals that bore no relationship to reality. A whistleblower inside his company, someone Teddy's investigator identified but would not name, had already contacted the SEC. The investigation was not a possibility. It was a certainty. The only question was when. He's been running this scheme for at least 6 years, Teddy explained over the phone, possibly longer. The divorce isn't about his heart, it's about his balance sheet. Colette processed this in layers. The first layer was rage. Pure, clean, uncomplicated fury. Her cheating husband was also a criminal. The man who stood at charity galas, writing $250,000 checks, was writing them with stolen money. The second layer was shame. She had lived in that house, worn clothes bought with that money, eaten at restaurants and taken vacations and planned a nursery in a mansion purchased with fraud. The third layer was the one that mattered, clarity. I'm not just a woman scorned, she said to Maggie that evening. I'm a woman who is used as a prop in a financial crime. Maggie handed her a cup of tea. Chamomile. No caffeine. So what are you going to do about it? Before Colette could answer, her phone lit up. A notification from a society blog she had never followed. Someone had tagged her. The headline read, Billionaire Grant Ashford announces split at wife's baby shower. New love is her own sister. The photos were everywhere. The shower, the cake, the horrified faces, and Colette, center frame, 8 months pregnant, caught in the moment between hearing and understanding. Her mouth open, her hand on her belly. The worst moment of her life, frozen and published for strangers to judge. She read the comments. She told herself she wouldn't scroll down. She scrolled down. People called her pathetic. People called her blind. People called her fat. One comment with 400 likes read, No wonder he left. Look at her. Then a laughing emoji. She kept scrolling, telling herself the opinions of strangers didn't matter, memorizing every word. Maggie took the phone from her hands. Enough. I know. Then stop reading. I know. But she had already seen enough. The image of herself, round and shocked and publicly destroyed, was now the first result when you searched her name. The professional damage followed quickly. 3 former event planning clients called within 2 days. Each conversation lasted less than a minute. We think it's best to create some distance right now. It's not personal, Colette. It's just the optics. We love your work, but our board has concerns about the association. The word association, as if scandal were contagious, as if being humiliated by your husband was a disease other people might catch. 4 days after the baby shower, Ruth Ann Ashford called. Grant's mother, 67 years old. Old money, a spine made of steel and social climbing. She had never fully approved of Colette, the event planner who married above her station, the girl from Dot's modest Cape Cod house who somehow ended up in a Beacon Hill mansion. "Colette, dear," Ruth Ann said. Her voice was smooth, polished, the verbal equivalent of a silk glove, concealing a clenched fist. "I want you to know that I support Grant's decision. It's for the best. Sometimes marriages simply run their course." Colette held the phone against her ear and waited. "And frankly," Ruth Ann continued, "you did let yourself go. I say this with love. A man like Grant has certain expectations. He needs a woman who maintains herself. The weight gain, the sweatpants, the canceled social engagements. You stop trying, Colette. A marriage requires effort from both sides." The words landed like stones dropped into still water, each one sinking, each one spreading. "Ruth Ann," Colette said. Her voice did not shake. "I am growing your grandchild. What exactly should I be maintaining?" Silence. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. Ruth Ann hung up. Colette drove to the beach that afternoon. November. Cold. The kind of New England cold that finds its way through every layer. She sat on a bench facing the water and watched the waves. Gray waves under a gray sky moving toward a gray shore. She didn't think about Grant. She didn't think about Jocelyn. She didn't think about money or custody or the SEC. She thought about the baby. She placed both hands on her belly, flat, open, feeling the warmth beneath. "It's you and me," she whispered. "That's enough. That has to be enough." The wind picked up, the waves crashed harder. A seagull screamed overhead, angry at nothing and everything. She sat there until her fingers went numb. That evening, an encrypted email arrived. The sender was Beau Prescott, Grant's business partner of 12 years, his best man at the wedding, the person Grant trusted more than anyone. Subject line: "I can't stay quiet anymore." Attached: 3 years of financial records, every fraudulent appraisal, every inflated valuation, every hidden account, every shell company, every lie documented and dated and damning. And a note at the bottom: "He doesn't deserve you. He never did. Use everything." The contractions started at 2 in the morning, not labor contractions, stress contractions. Braxton Hicks, the doctors would call them later, but that clinical name did nothing to describe the feeling of her body clenching around itself like a fist. Colette woke, gasping. The guest room was dark. The sheets were damp with sweat. She tried to sit up, and the room tilted sideways. "Maggie," she called. Her voice was thin. "Maggie." Maggie appeared in the doorway within seconds. Scrubs on, hair up. Nurse mode activated. "How far apart?" Maggie asked. "I don't know. Something's wrong." Maggie pressed 2 fingers to Colette's wrist, pulse racing. She checked her ankles. Swollen beyond anything normal, she looked at Colette's face and saw something that turned her expression from concerned to urgent. "We're going to the hospital. Now." The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. The paramedics were calm and efficient. They loaded Colette onto a gurney with gentle hands and steady voices. The siren didn't wail. They didn't need to. The hospital was 8 minutes away. Dr. Adeline Cross met them at the entrance. She was 50. Calm, competent, she had delivered over 3,000 babies in 22 years of practice. She took one look at Colette's vitals and ordered a battery of tests. Preeclampsia, blood pressure dangerously elevated, protein in her urine, swelling in her hands and face that went beyond normal pregnancy retention. "We need to manage this carefully," Dr. Cross told Colette. "The baby is fine for now. Strong heartbeat, good movement. But your blood pressure needs to come down. Stress is making this worse." "I'm aware of the stress," Colette said. "I know you are, but your body is keeping score even when your mind tries not to." They admitted her. A private room, white walls, machines that beeped in rhythms she couldn't decipher. The hospital smelled like hand sanitizer and floor wax and the particular absence of home. Maggie was in the waiting room, family only in the maternity ward, and Colette's family was broken. She called Dot. Dot was on her way. 45 minutes from the Cape, the hospital called Grant. He was listed as emergency contact. Colette hadn't had the chance, or the heart, to change it yet. He didn't answer. They left a voicemail. He didn't call back. At 11:47 that night, Jocelyn posted an Instagram story. A French restaurant. White tablecloths. Candlelight. Grant's hand reaching across the table. On Jocelyn's left hand, an engagement ring, emerald cut. The receipt from the jeweler on Newberry Street made real. The caption, "When you know, you know." 214 likes in the first hour. Colette didn't see it. A nurse did. She mentioned it to another nurse. The second nurse mentioned it to Maggie in the waiting room. Maggie said a word that would have gotten her fired in most workplaces. At 3 in the morning, the hospital went quiet. Colette lay on her left side. Monitors beeped. The IV dripped. A fluorescent light buzzed overhead, slightly off rhythm, like a heartbeat that couldn't find its tempo. She stared at the ceiling tiles. She counted them. 14 across, 9 down. 126 tiles between her and whatever was above. Her mind did what it always did in the dark. It went backward. Every choice that led here. Marrying Grant despite Maggie's carefully worded warnings. Introducing him to Jocelyn at the engagement party. Ignoring the late nights. Accepting the excuses. Getting pregnant because she thought a baby would close the distance between them. God, I did this to myself. No, he did this to me. No, I let him. No, he chose to lie. He chose to cheat. He chose to steal. I chose to trust. Trusting isn't a crime. Trusting isn't stupidity. Trusting is what you do when you love someone. And I loved him. That doesn't make me weak. That makes me someone who gave everything to a man who deserved none of it. She cried. Not the gentle crying from movies, the ugly kind, the kind that contorts your face and squeezes your chest and makes the heart monitors beep faster. A nurse came in. Older, gray hair pulled back in a bun. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She sat on the edge of the bed and held Colette's hand. The nurse's palm was warm and dry and steady. They sat like that for a long time. The machines beeped. The ceiling buzzed. Outside, the city slept. Morning came. Gray light through the hospital blinds. Dot was in the chair beside the bed, asleep, her reading glasses still on her face. Maggie came in with coffee she wasn't allowed to drink, and news she didn't want to hear. Grant's attorney filed a motion this morning, Maggie said. Emergency custody petition. He's claiming your hospitalization demonstrates inability to provide a stable environment for the child. Colette closed her eyes. He's using this, she said. Yes. She opened her eyes. She looked at Maggie. She looked at her mother sleeping in the chair. She looked at her own hands, swollen and IV pierced, and resting on a belly that held everything she had left. "I want to give in," she said. "I want to sign whatever he wants. Give him whatever he wants. I'm tired. I can't fight a billionaire. I can't fight my own sister. I can't fight while growing a human being inside my body." Maggie sat on the hospital bed. She took both of Colette's hands in hers. "You remember when we were 19? That landlord who tried to keep our security deposit? $400. You fought that man for 3 months. You wrote letters. You showed up at his office. You filed a complaint with the housing board. You won. That was different. You fought for $400, Colette. Your baby is worth more than $400. Silence. "That landlord didn't have $1 billion, Colette said. "No, but he had the same amount of nerve." Dr. Cross came in at 10:15 with test results. She held the chart against her chest and smiled. "The baby is healthy, strong heartbeat, good movement. All measurements are exactly where they should be." She paused. "And I can tell you the sex, if you'd like to know." Colette had been waiting. She and Grant had agreed to wait, but Grant had broken every other agreement, so this one no longer applied. "Tell me, you're having a girl, a daughter. Something shifted. Not dramatic, not cinematic, something quiet and deep, like tectonic plates adjusting beneath the surface. A realignment so fundamental, it changed the shape of everything above. She was having a daughter, and her daughter was going to be born into a world where her mother either fought or surrendered. There was no middle ground. There was no quiet option. Colette picked up her phone. She called Teddy. "Get Bo's files," she said. "The boss," she said. "Get the forensic accountant. Get everything." "Does this mean we're not signing anything, we're not giving in, we're not accepting whatever he offers?" She paused. "My daughter is going to know that her mother stood up." Released from the hospital on strict bed rest, Colette set up her war room on Maggie's couch. 3 pillows behind her back, a laptop on a breakfast tray. Her swollen feet elevated on a stack of cushions. She looked ridiculous. She felt invincible. Teddy's team had been working around the clock. Bo's financial records were a gold mine. 3 years of fraudulent appraisals, documented in meticulous detail. Inflated property values, falsified loan applications, hidden accounts in Delaware and the Cayman Islands. The paper trail led from Grant's desk to a network of shell companies so elaborate it would take federal investigators months to untangle. Bo came to see her on a Thursday afternoon. He stood in Maggie's living room with his hands in his pockets and the look of a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time. He was 40, solid, broad shoulders, the kind of man who filled a doorway. He and Grant had been partners for 12 years. They had built the company together. They had celebrated together and lied together and looked the other way together. "I should have come forward sooner," Bo said. He couldn't quite look at her. "I knew about the fraud for over a year. I told myself it would sort itself out, that the market would correct, that the numbers would eventually align with reality." He paused. "They never do." "Why now?" Colette asked. "The baby shower." His jaw tightened. "I watched him stand in front of 200 people and humiliate his pregnant wife. I watched him smile while he did it, and I realized something." "What?" "If he could do that to you, there's nothing he wouldn't do. To anyone." He looked at her then, really looked at her, not with pity, not with guilt, with something that resembled respect. "I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of," Bo said. "But I won't be part of destroying a mother and her child." Meanwhile, Jocelyn was learning that penthouse living came with a price. Grant was distracted. The SEC inquiry had begun. Quiet at first, document requests and preliminary interviews. His lawyers called at all hours. His mood swung from manic confidence to cold fury. He worked 18-hour days and came home smelling like whiskey and anxiety. Jocelyn had moved into the penthouse on Commonwealth Avenue. She redecorated. She removed every photo of Colette. She replaced the art. She fired the housekeeper and the cook and the driver. She hired her own people. She hosted a dinner party 2 weeks after the baby shower, 12 guests. She introduced herself as the future Mrs. Ashford and served a 7-course meal prepared by a private chef. But Grant barely spoke at the dinner. He checked his phone under the table. He snapped at the waiter for pouring the wrong wine. When a guest asked about the real estate market, Grant's smile went thin and brittle, and everyone pretended not to notice. After the guests left, Jocelyn found Grant in his office. Door closed. Phone to his ear, his voice was harsh. "Tell them we'll comply, but we need more time. Stall. Do whatever you have to do." She waited until he hung up. "What's happening?" she asked. "Business," he said. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." He looked at her the way you look at something that has already served its purpose. "Go to bed, Jocelyn." She went. She lay in the bed she had taken from her sister and stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was what winning felt like. She called a friend the next morning. Her voice was careful, controlled. "He's different now, stressed, distant. He barely looks at me. I gave up everything for this." Her friend was quiet for a moment. Then, "What exactly did you give up, Joss?" Jocelyn couldn't answer. 2 weeks before Christmas, Ruth Ann Ashford called Colette again. But this time, her voice was different. Smaller, stripped of its polish. "I said terrible things to you," Ruth Ann said. "About your weight, about maintaining yourself." A long pause, the sound of controlled breathing. "Grant's father said the same things to me. 30 years ago, before he left me for his secretary. I swore I would never become that woman, the woman who blames the wife." Her voice cracked, a specific wobble. The wobble that older women get when they are trying very hard not to cry. The wobble of someone who has spent decades pretending that everything is fine. Colette recognized it immediately. Her own mother had the same wobble. Every woman who has held herself together for long enough develops it. "I became exactly what I hated," Ruth Ann said. "I looked at you and saw myself at 31. Pregnant, scared, replaced. And instead of helping you, I sided with him, because it was easier to believe you deserved it than to admit my son is his father's shadow." "Ruth Ann, I have something for your lawyer. Grant's family trust documents, his father's accounts. There's a pattern, Colette. Hidden accounts going back decades. The fraud didn't start with Grant. It started with his father. It's generational." She paused. "You're going to win," Ruth Ann said. "And I want to be on the right side when you do." Colette hung up. She sat very still for a long time. The people who hurt you sometimes become the people who save you. Not because they're good, because they finally see themselves in your pain. That evening, Teddy called with the news she had been waiting for. The SEC has officially opened a formal investigation into Ashford Holdings. Federal subpoenas have been issued. And the forged signature on your house transfer, the forensic analyst confirmed it. "It's not your handwriting. It's not even a good forgery." "What does that mean?" Colette asked. "It means we can file criminal charges for fraud and forgery. The district attorney's office is interested." A pause. "This is your leverage, Colette. Not revenge, leverage. What do you want to do with it?" She looked down at her belly. 35 weeks. 5 more weeks until her daughter arrived. 5 more weeks to build the world her daughter would be born into. "I want to meet with Grant," she said, "face to face, his lawyers and mine. Let's finish this." The conference room at Teddy's law firm was on the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a mahogany table, long enough for 12. The city of Boston spread out below, like a model someone had forgotten to put away. Colette arrived at 9 in the morning, 36 weeks pregnant. She walked slowly. She did not hurry. She did not smooth her dress. She did not try to make herself smaller. Grant was already seated. He looked older, thinner. His tie was loose. His eyes had dark circles that no amount of expensive grooming could hide. He was flanked by 2 attorneys from Morrison and Kraft, the most expensive firm in the city. They looked nervous. Expensive lawyers look nervous when their client's case is built on quicksand. Teddy sat beside Colette. Across from him, a paralegal arranged documents in precise stacks. Grant spoke first, his boardroom voice, controlled, efficient. "Let's keep this civilized." Colette said nothing. She opened her briefcase, actually Teddy's briefcase, borrowed for the occasion, and placed 3 folders on the table. The first folder, Bo Prescott's financial records. 3 years of fraudulent appraisals, inflated valuations, and hidden shell companies. Every page flagged. Every number circled. Grant's lead attorney picked up the folder. His face went pale. The second folder, the forensic analysis of the house transfer documents. The forged signature. The expert's sworn statement. The recommendation from the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. The second attorney reached for her water glass. The third folder, Ruth Ann Ashford's contribution. The family trust documents showing a pattern of hidden accounts and fraudulent dealings going back to Grant's father. Generational fraud documented across 3 decades. Grant stared at the folders. His composure shifted. Not cracking, melting, slowly like ice in warm water. "Where did you get these?" he asked. "Does it matter?" "Bo," Grant said. Not a question. A realization. His best friend, his best man, his partner, gone. Colette leaned forward. She spoke clearly, every word deliberate, every syllable carrying the weight of 8 months of silence and pain and patience. "I don't want to ruin you, Grant. I want what's fair. I want full custody of our daughter. I want the house, legitimately, not through forged document. I want a fair settlement from your pre-fraud assets. And I want one more thing." He waited. A public apology. Published in the same blog that ran the baby shower photos. "Not for my ego. For the record. So our daughter will someday know that what happened to her mother was acknowledged." Grant's attorneys huddled, whispered, gestured. The lead attorney leaned in and spoke in Grant's ear. Grant shook his head. The attorney spoke again. Grant shook his head, harder. The attorney sat back and said nothing more. "Why the baby shower?" Colette asked. Her voice was steady. "You could have told me in private, in our kitchen, in our bedroom. You chose the shower. 200 people, my mother, my friends, my half-sister waiting in the wings like an understudy ready for opening night. Colette, tell me why. Not your lawyers, not your mother. You. Why did you choose maximum cruelty?" The conference room hummed. The air conditioning droned. Someone's pen clicked against the table. Once. Twice. Grant's hands were flat on the mahogany. His wedding ring was gone. She noticed. Of course she noticed. "Because I was afraid," he said. "Of what?" "Of you. If I told you in private, you would have talked me out of it. You would have looked at me with those eyes and asked me to stay, and I would have stayed. You always could do that. You were always the stronger one. I needed witnesses. I needed it to be irreversible." The room was silent. Colette looked at the man she had married, the man she had loved, the man she had built a life with and conceived a child with and trusted with everything she had. "I know," she said. "I was always the stronger one." She signed the settlement papers with a pen Teddy gave her. Heavy, silver, engraved with his firm's name. Her hand did not shake. She remembered signing the marriage certificate 3 years ago. Her hand shook then, with excitement. with hope, with the belief that this was the beginning of forever. Now her hand was steady, not because she felt nothing, because she felt everything and signed anyway. Grant signed next. His hand shook. She noticed. She didn't mention it. Full custody. The house. A settlement of $4,200,000 from pre-fraud assets. The criminal charges for forgery held in reserve, Colette's insurance policy, her quiet guarantee that Grant would honor every word. As Colette left the conference room, she heard Grant's phone ring behind her. She was in the hallway. She shouldn't have been able to hear his reaction, but the walls were thin, or his composure was thinner. "What do you mean, frozen?" Grant said. All of them? Every account. The SEC had moved. His assets were locked. His accounts sealed. His empire, already crumbling, had just collapsed. Jocelyn was in the hallway. She had been waiting. She wore a cream sweater and designer boots and an expression that was slowly reshaping itself from concern to calculation. She heard everything. Her manicured fingers moved across her phone screen. Colette didn't need to see what she was typing. She already knew. Jocelyn was Googling divorce lawyers. 3 months into her fairy tale, and the carriage had already turned back into a pumpkin. The SEC investigation made the front page of the Boston Globe on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, it was national news. By Thursday, Grant Ashford's name was trending on social media, accompanied by words like fraud, scandal, and downfall. His properties were seized one by one. The commercial developments, the luxury condominiums, the waterfront project he had announced with such fanfare last spring, all of it frozen under federal order. His investors fled. The ones who had once called him a visionary now called their lawyers. His social circle, the dinner party crowd, the charity gala set, the people who had clinked glasses in his honor, disappeared like morning fog. The only calls Grant received were from attorneys and journalists. Jocelyn lasted 6 weeks in the penthouse before the federal marshals came. They gave her 48 hours to vacate. She packed her designer clothes into suitcases she had bought with Grant's money and moved to a 1-bedroom apartment in Somerville. She had signed a prenuptial agreement. Of course she had. Grant's attorneys had insisted, and Jocelyn, so eager to secure the ring, had barely read it. The prenup was airtight. In the event of divorce or dissolution, Jocelyn was entitled to exactly nothing beyond what she brought into the marriage. What she brought, 4 suitcases and $87,000 in credit card debt. Grant, facing federal charges, could not afford a contested divorce. He could barely afford his own defense attorneys. The man who once wrote $250,000 checks at charity galas was now negotiating payment plans. Jocelyn called Colette on a Sunday morning. No performance this time, no rehearsed sympathy, no white dress or funeral flowers, just a voice that sounded smaller than Colette had ever heard it. "I ruined my life," Jocelyn said. "I ruined yours. I don't even know why I did it." Colette was sitting in the nursery, sage green walls, the crib assembled, the mobile turning slowly, casting tiny shadows of stars and moons. She held the phone against her ear and listened to her half-sister breathe. "I think you do know why," Colette said. "You've been trying to become me since you were 16, my prom date, my roommate, my boyfriend, my husband. But you never wanted my life, Jocelyn. You wanted to take my life. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Wanting someone's life means admiring it. Taking someone's life means destroying it. You didn't want what I had. You wanted me not to have it." Silence on the line. The mobile turned. Stars and moons and shadows. "Can you ever forgive me?" Jocelyn asked. "Not today," Colette said. "Maybe not ever. But I hope you stop looking at other people's lives and start building one of your own. She hung up. She placed the phone face down on the dresser. She adjusted a stuffed rabbit in the crib. She straightened a blanket that didn't need straightening. Then she let it go. All of it. Not forgiveness, not yet, but she stopped carrying it. She set it down, the way you set down something that has been heavy for too long, gently, with relief, with the understanding that it was never hers to carry. The baby came at 38 weeks, a Tuesday, 3:15 in the morning, because babies, like all the most important arrivals, come on their own schedule. Dot drove, her hands steady on the wheel, her jaw set. She ran 2 red lights and dared the universe to stop her. Maggie met them at the hospital entrance. She was already in scrubs. She had spoken to Dr. Cross. Everything was ready. The labor was long, 14 hours. The kind of labor that strips away everything unnecessary and leaves only what is essential. Pain and breathing, and counting and waiting. The ice chips tasted like nothing. Dot's hand was warm and rough and never let go. Maggie's voice counted through contractions with the calm authority of someone who had done this 1,000 times. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The monitors beeped. The clock on the wall moved so slowly, Colette was convinced it was running backward. At 4:17 in the morning, Eleonora Grace Ashford came into the world. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, screaming, red-faced, furious. The doctor placed her on Colette's chest, warm and wet and impossibly small. Her fists clenched, her eyes squeezed shut, her mouth open, demanding everything the world had to offer. Colette laughed. The sound surprised her. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere untouched by the last 9 months of devastation. "She's angry," Colette said. Maggie wiped her eyes. "Good. She's going to need that." Dot leaned over and looked at her granddaughter. She didn't speak. She pressed her lips together and nodded, the way women of her generation acknowledge miracles. Quietly, without fuss. Eleonora. For strength. Grace. For the choice Colette made when she could have chosen destruction. Grant's public apology ran in the Society blog 3 days later. 3 paragraphs. Clearly written by a lawyer. Stiff, formal, careful. But the last line felt real, felt like him, felt like the man she had married before she knew what he was capable of. "I made the worst mistake a man can make. I failed to see what I had. Colette Ashford is the strongest person I have ever known, and I am deeply sorry." Colette read it once. She closed the laptop. She picked up Eleonora, who was sleeping with her fists clenched, ready to fight even in her dreams. They went for a walk. December. Cold. The stroller wheels crunched over frozen leaves. The air smelled like wood smoke and frost. A woman passing by stopped and looked into the stroller. "Beautiful baby?" she said. "Thank you," Colette replied. A normal moment, an ordinary exchange, the first one in months. And it felt like everything. 6 months changed everything. 6 months changed nothing. Both were true. Colette stood in the kitchen of her Beacon Hill house. Her house now, legally, finally, completely hers, and watched Eleonora try to pull herself up on the leg of a dining chair. The baby grabbed the chair leg with both hands. She pulled. She rose 2 inches. She fell. She grabbed again. She pulled. She rose 3 inches. She fell. She grabbed again. 11 times. Colette counted. 11 falls. On the 12th attempt, Eleonora stood. Her legs wobbled. Her hands gripped the chair legs so hard her tiny knuckles went white. But she stood. She looked at Colette with an expression of pure, defiant triumph. As if to say, "I told you I could do this." Colette thought, "That's it. That's the whole story. You fall, you stand, you fall, you stand. until standing is what you do. The house was different now. Colette had repainted, removed the art Grant had chosen, replaced the furniture that held his shape. The nursery stayed sage green, but the rest of the house was hers. Warm, bright, full of color and light, and the particular beautiful mess of a home with a baby in it. Dot had moved into the guest house. She said it was temporary. Her suitcases told a different story. She baked every morning, muffins, scones, the chocolate chip cookies from the recipe she taught Colette when Colette was 9. The kitchen always smelled like butter and sugar and home. Colette relaunched her event planning business in April. Not the same business, not the same clients, not the same woman behind it. She called it Second Act Events. She specialized in fundraisers for women's shelters, community gatherings, celebrations for women starting over, launch parties for first-time entrepreneurs, graduation dinners for women who went back to school at 40, anniversary celebrations for second marriages that people said would never work. The business grew faster than she expected. Not because of the scandal, because of the work, because Colette Ashford understood, in a way she hadn't before, that celebrations matter most when they mark survival. Dot's Baking became the signature catering offering. The chocolate chip cookies were the most requested item. People drove from 3 towns over to order them. "I should have opened a bakery 20 years ago," Dot said one morning, dusting flour from her apron. "You're opening one now," Colette said. "That counts." Beau Prescott had cooperated fully with the SEC investigation. His testimony was instrumental. In exchange for his cooperation, prosecutors declined to charge him. He started his own consulting firm, Ethical Real Estate Development. He sent baby gifts every month. A stuffed elephant, a set of wooden blocks, a tiny pair of sneakers, he said, reminded him of basketball shoes. He kept a respectful distance. He checked in monthly. He never asked for more than he deserved. Grant faced 4 federal charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. His trial was scheduled for the fall. His attorneys negotiated. His assets, what remained of them, were frozen or seized. The billionaire had become a cautionary tale. Jocelyn disappeared from social media. She took a job at a real estate office in Worcester, not as an agent, as an administrative assistant. She answered phones and filed documents and ate lunch alone at her desk. She did not contact Colette again, not for a long time. On a Saturday in July, Warren asked to meet Eleonora. Colette thought about it for 2 weeks. She weighed it from every angle. The man who abandoned her as a child. The man who knew about the affair and said nothing. The man who chose silence over his daughter's safety. But also, the man who eventually came forward. The man who stood in Dot's kitchen and wept. The man who was, beneath the cowardice, her father. She said yes, but on her terms, at her house, with Dot present. Warren arrived at 10 in the morning. He wore a clean shirt and pressed pants and the expression of someone who has been given something he knows he hasn't earned. Dot opened the door. She looked at her ex-husband for a long moment, then she stepped aside. That was all the welcome he would get. Colette brought Eleonora in, 6 months old, bright-eyed, already opinionated. She had Colette's dark eyes and her own fierce temperament and a full head of hair that went in every direction at once. Warren held his granddaughter. His hands, which had shaken in Dot's kitchen, were steady now. Eleonora grabbed his finger and held on. She looked at him with the uncomplicated curiosity of someone who had no history to forgive. He cried, quietly, the way men of his generation cry, looking away, jaw tight, pretending the tears aren't there while everyone politely agrees. "I'm sorry, Letty," he said. "I know. I should have been better. Yes? Can I be part of her life?" Colette looked at her father, holding her daughter. Two ends of a story she was still writing. You can be in her life, she said, but you need to earn that. Starting now. Not with apologies, with showing up. Consistently, reliably, the way you never showed up for me. Warren nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't make it about himself. For the first time in Colette's memory, her father simply listened. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a direction. She wasn't there yet, but she was facing that way, and for today, that was enough. Ruth Ann sent handwritten notes, one every 2 weeks, written on cream stationery with her initials embossed at the top. She asked about Eleonora. She asked about the business. She sent a check for the baby's college fund. She never asked for credit, or gratitude, or absolution. Once at the bottom of a note, she wrote, "You are the mother I wish I had been." Colette kept that note in her nightstand drawer. Autumn arrived. The leaves turned. The air sharpened. Boston dressed itself in gold and rust and the particular crisp beauty of a New England October. Colette planned her biggest event yet, a charity gala for the Ashford Foundation for Financial Independence, a new organization she had founded with the settlement money. Its mission, providing legal aid, financial literacy, and emergency support for women experiencing domestic financial abuse. The venue was the Boston Harbor Hotel Ballroom, the same ballroom where she had met Grant 4 years ago, the same podium where he had stood and written a check for $250,000 stolen dollars and smiled his easy smile. She chose it deliberately, not for revenge, for reclamation. 300 guests, a jazz quartet, centerpieces low enough for people to see each other across the table. Handwritten place cards, details that said, "Someone who understands connection planned this." Dot's Catering Company provided the dessert, chocolate chip cookies on silver trays. People lined up for seconds. Colette stood in the center of the ballroom. She was not 8 months pregnant. She was not smoothing her dress. She was not checking to see who was watching. She wore red, a deep, saturated crimson that filled the room. Grant had told her once that red was too much for her complexion. Too bold, too loud, too visible for a woman he preferred to keep small. She wore it now. She filled the room with it. A journalist approached during the cocktail hour, young, earnest, digital recorder in hand. "Miss Ashford, you've been through what many would consider a devastating experience. Public humiliation, betrayal by your husband and your sister, financial fraud. What would you say to women going through something similar?" Colette thought for a moment. She looked across the ballroom. 300 people. Jazz music, warm light. The clink of glasses and the murmur of conversation and the particular electricity of a room full of people who came to celebrate something that matters. "Don't let anyone make you small," she said. "Not a husband, not a sister, not a mirror, not a number on a scale, not a comment section full of strangers who have never met you. You are the whole story, not just a chapter in someone else's." The journalist thanked her. Colette nodded and moved on. She found Maggie near the bar. "Nice speech," Maggie said. "It wasn't a speech. She caught me off guard." "That's when you're best." Maggie paused. She looked around the room. "You know what I keep thinking?" "What?" "4 years ago, you were working this room, setting up, breaking down, making sure the centerpieces were right and the napkins were folded and someone else's night was perfect." She looked at Colette. "Now it's your room." Colette smiled. "It was always my room. I just didn't know it." The evening wound down. Speeches were made. Donations were pledged. 300 people said goodnight and walked out into the October air, and the ballroom emptied the way ballrooms do. Slowly, reluctantly, with the lingering energy of something meaningful. Colette was the last to leave. She stood in the empty room, the chairs pushed in, the tablecloths slightly wrinkled, the jazz quartet packing up their instruments in black cases. She looked across the room and saw herself, not a reflection, a memory, the woman she was a year ago, standing at her baby shower, smoothing her dress over her belly, smiling until her cheeks ached, waiting for a man who didn't deserve to be waited for. She nodded at that woman, gently, with compassion, with the understanding that the woman at the baby shower did the best she could with what she knew at the time. That woman nodded back. Colette turned off the lights. She drove home. The streets were quiet, October quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice the sound of your own breathing and the hum of the engine and the particular peace of being alone without being lonely. Eleonora was asleep in the car seat, mouth open, fists clenched, even in sleep, ready to fight, ready to stand, ready for whatever the world brought next. The radio played a song Colette didn't recognize, something soft and slow, a woman's voice singing about roads and rivers and the distance between where you started and where you end up. She hummed along. She didn't know the words. She hummed anyway. The road stretched out ahead, dark pavement, yellow lines, streetlights casting pools of amber light that appeared and disappeared in steady rhythm. She didn't know where it led. She drove toward it anyway. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real emotional value and life lessons. Every word was crafted with purpose, to entertain, to inspire, and to remind you that no matter what life takes from you, it can never take who you are. Thank you for listening. We will see you in the next story.